You'll get over heartache. You'll get over heartache. You'll get over heartache. Carry on, don't fear the fall, 'cause you'll get over heartache. Let it go as time moves on. Yes, you'll get over heartache. Carry on, it's not what happens now. You'll get over heartache. You'll get over heartache. You'll get over heartache. Carry on, don't fear the fall, 'cause you'll get over heartache. Let it go as time moves on. Yes, you'll get over heartache. Carry on, it's not what happens now.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste. We've all heard this adage. And this phrase has seeped into many a vernacular. I'm certain, almost guaranteed, it has been translated into every conceivable language possible. It has been copied, it has been parodied, and what I like to call refixed. You know, when you take something and you try to change it and make it your own, refix. That's what I call it, refixed. Who can forget former US Vice President Dan Quayle when he was addressing an assembly and he said it was a blunder. He was trying to refix the phrase, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And he quipped, what a waste it is to lose one's mind. Some of you may be a little too young to remember. Some of you are not avid readers, are not avid followers of US politics or anything outside of your square box. But those of you who follow world news and whatever would remember Dan Quayle's famous blunder when he says, a mind, what a waste it is to lose one's mind. What he really wanted to say was, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. This phrase is emblematic especially when it refers to young people liming aimlessly, referring to them not going to school, not making useful time, use of their time. This past weekend, Sunday, in fact, I was forwarded a video which was very extremely disturbing on many levels. And that's putting it mildly. So disturbing, in fact, I actually went online to do a little research on what I was viewing in that video. So I would be able to go back to the person who forwarded me this video and say, ha ha ha, joke's on you. But what I discovered in doing that research, going online, was even more alarming, even more horrific, even more frightful. And what was even more frightful, what was most frightful, I should say, was the fact that this activity, this occurrence, this pastime has been around since the 60s and 70s. And it's now making a resurgence, a comeback, so to speak. And now it has arrived here in the Caribbean, more specifically Jamaica. But we all know Whatever hits Jamaica is just a matter of time before it hits the wider Caribbean, the OECS. I mean, just look at the music, Jamaican music, reggae. I mean, it is all over. No one can say they've never heard reggae music. And even if it's not their cup of tea, they know about reggae music. They could tell you about Bob Marley. Yeah, they could tell you about Peter Tosh. So if it's hit Jamaica, it's just a matter of time before it hits the rest of the Caribbean. And who knows, it may have already hit here and we just don't know how to recognize it. We don't know what it is that we're seeing. Honestly, I am of two minds whether I should play this video or whether I don't know. It is so disturbing. Do we have the video? The first one, the one I sent. We'll pause on the video for now. I'm still trying to compose myself in what I saw and what I discovered. So I'll let you in on a little on some of my research. So in North America, I'm not sure what it's called in Jamaica, but in North America, it's called illy, it's called wet, it's called death stick. Death stick. And you would wonder why somebody would try something with the name death in it. And I'm sure you're wondering what demographic is afflicted by this death stick, uses this death stick. And what I found was that though it may have started off in poorer and inner city communities, it is no stranger to some of the posher areas in North America. In the suburbs, in the high rises, and it's oftentimes teenagers and 20-something-year-olds using this death stick. And what was discombobulating for me is the fact that college students who ought to know better, you would think that they're at college, they're smart enough. Hundreds of thousands of people try to get into college a year and they're unable because one, they may be too poor, they don't have the finances, or two, because somebody else is taking up a space and there are not enough spaces despite the number of universities that are around. So there are these children, these young people taking up spaces that other people want to take up, and they're using the death stick. Before I go any further, I don't want to prejudice your mind. I want you to view the video first and then we'll have a discourse on it. Let's roll the tape.
Watch out, my rascal. Mickey, yo, get some water for me. I want to Mickey Mark. I want to Mickey Mark. I want to Mickey, yo, get some water for me. We're going to get some water for me. We're going to get some water for him. We're going to get some water for him. Get the water for him, do. Get the water for him. He get fucked, man. The embalm fuck up a man to blood clot. Watch out, Jesus Christ. Watch out, Jesus Christ. Rascal. Rascal. Yo, you don't know him, mother. You want to call him man, mother, yo. You want to call him mother, dog. You have him mother number.
Call him man, mother, dog. Bomb buckler, the man a go dog. The embalming fluid, dog. I tag him man over the sabon, young bad man. Tell him man to load the embalming fluid alone in a bad man.
Let me get a number for you,
Yo,
mother. Let me get a number for you.
man, mother, dog. When girl, bomb buckler. Bomb buckler, dog.
Embalming fluid.
Bumbo clock, dog.
Well, God, well, what? See, sitting there, man, when I said they take for a man in the blood clot, embalm fluid, you. See it in the back class, I hit him man off the blood clot with the cigarette and the weed, you.
Bumbo
See it
clock,
now.
embalming fluid, dog. This man they a smoke from when you no kill it.
You go kill him,
The
you know.
man fi top smoke in a dog. It a fuck up you them meds in a you. Yeah, man.
Rascal. Mr. Lecky, man. Rascal.
this?
Yes, man.
If I dem a fluid, you now go and take boy. You will forget for this. Me things you fix man have you know. I fluid in take. So you run out of sight. Me don't know when gone. So the man them have to make sure so they not take in a rasta. You understand? See it there. See it me the dash there. See it there. And the embalming fluid. I me a dash it. I me a dash it. See it? So youth, you know realize not take no more of this. Mash up the buckle. So you no take no more it youth. No take no more embalming fluid. When a man a go on a cigarette, watch, look pan it, watch everything. When a man a go on a spliff, watch everything. Cause once you no take it, a gone or no gone youth. Cause if you notice that the youth them wanna smoke, them more conscious, be truthful. So sometimes me they say if I the weed, and me they say I the boom and the rum. But a man, when a man show me the embalming fluid this morning, you know see, me say the man almost dead. The man lick up in head, the man.
So that I fluid that they use and bomb people yes,
yes,
at the dead house.
I funeral parlor.
Yeah.
You understand? So we have to.
So where they get this thing to purchase?
Boy, I don't even know. Me wonder if I man them want the dead body come from them parlor do it. In my community, me a beg man them if not take them thing they out.
So Ella, you think the government should launch an investigation towards this
Yes,
embalm
but
fluid?
definite.
Yes, you heard right. Embalming fluid. And for those of you who are as perplexed as I was, yes, embalming fluid is a chemical that is used to preserve dead bodies. Dead bodies. And that is the trend that is becoming increasingly popular in North America and some other countries, and now has found itself in Jamaica. Now, where would somebody get embalming fluid, you would say? Like, it's not just lying around. I mean, how do you get... Funny thing is, sad thing is, in the great United States of America, the police are having a hard time dealing with this scourge because it is growing, and it could potentially be the next big thing. Why? Because it is perfectly legal. While you may not be able to get embalming fluid as embalming fluid, but the components of embalming fluid, formaldehyde, ethanol, what else? Methanol. These are all things that are easily found in a drugstore. Easily found in the drugstore. And this is these are the components, some other simple components of embalming fluid. So what they do, they take the cigarette or the marijuana or whatever it is that they're smoking, they dip it in the embalming fluid, they then dry it, and then they smoke it. And as you can see, this is the effect of it. It's like PCP. If you feel invincible. You feel invincible. You have a higher tolerance to pain. You become violent, psychotic. You have visual and auditory hallucinations. You become very, very angry. Forgetfulness is another side effect of this embalming fluid craze, and paranoia. And we all know what paranoia leads to. Somebody's always out to get you, and you're going to get them before they get to you. Parents, I hope you didn't send your children out of there. And I need to apologize for the swearing in there. But I needed you to hear it as it is. This is what's happening. This is what your children are up to when you're not around. These are their friends, laughing and filming. Laughing and filming. And guess what? Go get him mother. Go get him mother. His mother was there when he went to smoke this? But go call his go get him mother. Go get him mother. I mean, like seriously, how much do mothers have to take? You raise your kids from the time of conception. You're sick to your stomach, literally. Most mothers, you know, the rare one or two don't get any illnesses. They just conceive and they give birth, no complications. But for the vast majority of mothers, it's not so. You've got morning sickness. Some people get it for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Others get it for 9 months. They have that morning sickness. I could tell you. 9 months they have this morning sickness. Puking, getting sick, weak. Some of them even spend time at hospital trying to give birth to these children. Then it comes to the actual delivery. Some get stitches. Some have to... They can't deliver naturally, so they've got to get what's called a C-section. All sorts of complications. Then the kids come out and the mother's blood pressure is all over the place. She's either high or low. She has a preeclampsia or eclampsia. Google it. Mr. Google is there for everybody. You'll know about it, you know. Or they get gestational diabetes. The risks are endless. And then you grow this child up. And this fool, this moron, decides what better way, what better rush, what more extreme high can I get but to take embalming fluid, a chemical used to preserve cadavers, and to smoke that crap. And you heard the slew of side effects that I mentioned earlier. Paranoia, anger, forgetfulness, hallucinations. And you're going to take that crap? I am so incensed, it's not real. Persons who smoke this wet, illy death stick could find themselves in a coma. They could suffer from seizures, renal failure. I have a dear friend of mine who suffers from kidney disease. She's fighting for her life, wishing she had a kidney that worked properly. And you're going to take your 2 good kidneys and ruin it, chasing a high? Chasing this euphoric rainbow. I mean, seriously. And I hope mothers and fathers, you're listening with your children, so that they saw the effects of this drug. It's so easy to take something innocuous and turn it into something deadly and fatal. I hope you didn't chase them out of the rooms. And I hope you weren't too perturbed by a few swear words and missed completely the message out there. This is in Jamaica. 1 hour away. 1 hour away. This could be in your backyards. It could already be there and you don't know it. So many times we see young men especially, and even young women too, acting up and going crazy, and we think, well, oh my gosh, they gave them a black joint, a bad marijuana or something, and we just think and it could be worse. So many times especially lately, we've been hearing so many young people dying. And I'm not talking about the incidents of vehicular accidents or murder. I'm talking about they developing these cancers, these organ failures, and just dying. And we don't know why. We don't know what precipitated these illnesses. Could it be something that they did, chasing euphoria? So on Sunday, we observed World Cancer Day, Cancer Awareness Day. Cancer Awareness Day. Did you know that formaldehyde, which is a huge component in embalming fluid, formaldehyde is a carcinogen. It's a carcinogenic agent. It's a carcinogen, which means it is cancer forming. Cancer forming. You have a perfectly healthy body and you're looking to introduce carcinogens into it. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Our healthcare at best is poor. We don't have the best healthcare. It's a fact. It's nothing to be proud of. It's nothing to gloat about. It's a fact. We don't have the resources assigned to or even available in some cases. We don't have a cancer treatment center. We do not have a kidney treatment center. We do not have a heart treatment center. But we're going to introduce all of this gunk into our bodies that could cause us to go into a coma, cause us to have seizures, which could kill us because the brain damage alone from the seizures could kill us, could cause us to suffer a stroke, could cause us to develop cancer. This, as we are opening our eyes and becoming aware of the scourge, which is cancer. And I dare say every one of us has been touched by cancer, whether directly or indirectly. Parents, I implore you, speak to your children, sit with them, have a chat with them about the dangers that are lurking outside your door. We are people who like to be in cliques. We want to be in a clique. We want to be in a gang. We want to belong. And that is okay. As long as you are the one doing the influencing, not the one being influenced, and being an influencer of good and wholesome activities. Good and wholesome activities. Please, parents, you may not, I don't know if you were as frightened as I was. I mean, when I looked at this thing, it just looked like some young bloke sitting there having a cigarette. And within one puff of illy, he's already acting the fool. Lost his senses completely. And his friends, they're laughing. They're laughing. Call him mother, anybody having a... I mean, seriously. But at least somebody thought to call the mother because they were obviously clueless. Obviously clueless. So I'm saying this to alert you that there is another danger, and every day there are going to be more out there. Be on the alert. Do not try anything chasing any elusive high. Don't do it. It's not worth it. So, what else is new? We're in February, and February, as all St. Lucians should know and be aware and be excited for, is the month of our independence. Are you ready for independence? What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Are you feeling the feeling, as they say? Are you feeling the independence feeling? I'm not. Sad to say, I'm not. I mean, this morning I noticed a couple of flags at the roundabout right at the waterfront there. But that's about it. And honestly, I would have thought from 1st of February that the city at the very least would have been decked out in our national colors. Flags would be on every building. The cars would be sporting their bonnet covers. The city would be alight, awash with flags. The communities would have all their buntings in the national colors. I don't see anything like that happening. And people, forgive me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what patriotism is all about? And I'm not just talking about on the government front. What is the government doing to imbue the feeling of independence, the feeling of pride that we should get, and the feeling of patriotism that we should get when we think of February and independence? We should be doing our little things. We should be putting our flags out. We should be proudly displaying our national colors. Businesses should be draping their buildings in the national colors. But I don't see anything like that happening. I don't know what the activities are going to be for independence. Is it going to be the usual march? Is it going to be the parade of the school children? And are there going to be concerts? What's going to happen? I mean, when it's Christmas, we hear things, and as we should. In the summer months, soon we'll be hearing about Soleil, and when it's jazz, we deck all the line the highways with buntings and posters. What are we doing for independence? What's happening? So hopefully sometime soon somebody is going to come through, and I've always extended that invitation to especially government and even the opposition too. I mean, the door is always free. My number is readily available. You can call me. You don't know my number. You don't feel to call me directly. You can call the studio. Come in and talk about what's affecting you as it pertains to our country. So hopefully next week you could stroll in, and talk to us about what the activities are. We need to know. People want to be jazzed, pardon the pun, about independence. It's not just about events outside or activities that we've adopted. What about our own? What's happening? So hopefully we get to hear a little bit more about independence. It's just a couple of weeks away, and we get to feel the feeling. You know what I mean? Feel the feeling, feel the vibe of independence, and to see us going to work in our national colors, and our children, sporting their ribbons or their emblems, persons, individuals draping their cars as a mark that we recognize that we are a young, independent nation. And there will be the usual calls about, are we really independent? Are we really a sovereign state if we're recognizing the Queen as our head of state and blah, 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 the usual. But you know what? It is what it is, and let us embrace what is our own. Now, speaking of walking in and coming through the doors, I've always wanted that, the impromptu kind of thing. I do have a special guest, which I wasn't expecting. So we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we'll have a little chat with my guest. See you on the other side of the break.
You
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned to What's Happening Now with Laura. And this is one of the things I love about this show. It's dynamic, it flows, it's wonderful. So before we went to break, I spoke a little bit about independence and how I wasn't feeling the feeling and I don't know what's happening. And almost instantaneously, the words were hardly out of my mouth that I got a calendar of events. Let me tell you something. I'm not really jazzed about the calendar of events, but at least I now have it and I can share that with you. So the activities for Independence started off on January 3rd. There was an Independence film competition. And that's going on until February 24th. January 31st, there was the Independence press launch. I didn't hear about that, but that's passed. From February 3rd to 25th, there is this Independence netball tournament going on. From the 10th to the 11th, there is an Independence table tennis tournament. The 15th to the 21st, so that was a table tennis, and now there's a tennis tournament. On the 16th of February, Miss Independence Pageant 2018. February 17th, National Sports Awards. February 17th and 18th, Prayer, Praise, and Worship Weekend, National Colors. February 18th, Mon Repos Road Relay. February 21st, National Colors Day, Independence Youth Expose, Independence Challenge Walk, and the Prime Minister's Grand Independence Ball. I could have been reading this from last year's program. Not jazz, as I said, but at least there is a program, and I will endeavor to have it on before we end the program, so that you can make a note of it and you could decide where you want to go, what you want to do. I would have thought that there would have been a lot more activities. I would have thought that there would be mass crowd events, so to speak. Because if I'm not into tennis and I'm not into netball, I highly doubt that I would go to one of those things. The Prime Minister's Ball is by invitation only, so you can get to participate in that. So what's happening? But anyway, enough of that. As I said, before the end of the show, I'll endeavor to have it put up so that you can see for yourselves and make a note for yourselves. There may be some persons who are enthused by that, but my guest this evening walked through the door very tired, but took up the invitation to come in. It's none other than Minister Dominic Fedee, Minister for Tourism in the Prime Minister's office. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you so very much for inviting me.
Dominic, why are you so tired?
There's quite a lot that's going on, and there's a lot to be done.
Right. So let's talk about tourism. I understand last year was a bumper year for tourism.
Very, very good. I mean, you could pass in the harbor, you see the cruise ships. I mean, the numbers were really, really good. We had a 11% overall. The cruise industry grew by about 13%. The stay over arrivals, the hotel guests grew by about 10.5%. So very, very good year. We see some new inventory coming in to circulation as well. We see an expansion at Sandals Grand. We see Bellevue expanded and reopening after being closed for many years. We see Rinjama Villa Beach Resort reopening as well after closing for construction. We see Serenity Hotel adding a high-end 36-room component to the Coconut Bay facility in Viewfort. So there was quite a lot happening very quietly. And, when we saw, for example, unemployment went down, it was because of a lot of these additions. Royalton opened up the remainder of their rooms. They had a partial opening. And so within the third quarter of the year, we saw them opening their full component of rooms, which is 456 total. So it's really helped us a lot. And, people are excited about St. Lucia in the marketplace. It continues to be one of those desired places to go. Now, I spoke about the numbers being good, but I want to tell you as well, Laura, that what is more important is the economic impact. So we've got to do a better job at ensuring that the linkages are right. When we talk about a 10% increase, that it means something to the farmer in Lavery and in ancillary and in Vanna and other places. So we have to ensure that we work very hard to bring about higher revenue yields in the destination. And so we are very pleased to announce that we have signed an agreement with the CARICOM Development Fund for the establishment of the Village Tourism Initiative, which we've been talking about. This allows St. Lucians to participate in the industry like they have never before. So what is good, the proliferation of online platforms like Airbnb and Villa.com and all of the other online travel agencies, I call them, allows now for people looking to open up apartments and bread and breakfast inns to participate in formal and non-traditional ways in the accommodation sector.
Now, let's just pause here for a little bit because this is an area that really intrigues me. So
Yes.
there are people, especially young people, who want to get into tourism. They don't have a whole lot of disposable income capital to invest into it. But they can have an apartment or they can have 2 apartments. They can make a very boutique-like experience. How do they get into that area, and how do they get endorsed by government? Because it makes no sense you doing something, you're doing it on your own. You could get business on your own, yes, fine. But without the endorsement of a body, accrediting your facility, it's almost like you have a glass ceiling almost. How do young people tap into that niche, that area?
Well, the Hotel Industry Act suggests that you must have at least 6 rooms to be defined as a hotel. We will be making some amendments to that so that we can allow people to participate.
And that includes bed and breakfasts and stuff like that. Yeah.
However, there are a lot of non-traditional accommodation. So when we last checked the Airbnb listings for St. Lucia, there are about 1,200 listings alone. I have a friend who is having a really good time with Airbnb. She told me that she's full from now until March.
Wow.
She's solidly booked, and you couldn't get a night in her facility. So a lot of people are doing it. I've been on flights and sat next to people coming to St. Lucia, and I, just out of interest, I would say, where are you staying? And it's at Airbnb facilities. So it has become very, very popular. But what we now need to do is to make sure that we structure this properly, to make sure that there are standards, to make sure that there's uniformity, there's safety, and we don't do any injury to the brand of the destination and the reputation of our country.
And,
So-
and we've been plagued with a few things internally that could impact our industry. We've had 60 murders last year. That could potentially be damaging to our reputation as a country. Where we're in. When you think of 60 vis-a-vis hundreds, when you look at Jamaica or Trinidad, but we're a lot smaller. So the impact, it's more intimate when you hear of murders in a smaller country. How are we working, your ministry that is, working with, say for instance, internal affairs, the police, to ensure that crime is kept at a minimum?
Well, no doubt, tourism will be one of those areas that will be most vulnerable towards any proliferation of crime. But I want to tell you, Laura, that our government is working very, very assiduously to ensure that we bring about a level of normalcy and a level of reprieve to the crime situation in our country. So we have partially opened up the forensic lab, and that has solved a number of cases. And I'm very pleased that we're also talking to other investors to see how we can expand the services of the forensic lab. And there's a lot of potency and a lot of intensity of purpose to ensure that we open up the lab facility so that we have an intelligence-led approach. There is a big push. You would have seen announcements from our government as it pertains to fixing up the judicial system. Now, we're doing this with very little money, very high debt, very low revenues, high deficits, as well as very, very slow economic growth. I think in the last 10 years we grew by about 1.3% average. So little or no growth at all. And that rate is very, very slow. And that doesn't help you to fix all the brokenness of your country. And then there's a statistics that said that we're paying about 450 million in civil service salaries. I think it's about 45 or 48 cents on every dollar that government collects. Then you have to service the debt, which is about 25 cents.
Wow.
So when you take the salaries and you take the debt servicing, you're left with very, very little to confront all of the challenges.
That's about
and problems.
27 cents on the dollar to do everything
Correct.
else.
Everything else, absolutely.
Wow.
So we are ensuring that there's a comprehensive-led approach to this. So the economy is a very, very big priority for this government as well. And you would see that our policies reflect that, a reduction in the value-added tax, ensuring that we put an extra $52 million into the local economy. We continue to strategically market our destination and push so that we can grow the tourism industry. We have subsidized the inputs for the agriculture sector, and you see that it has grown leaps and bounds significantly. Some 66 farmers have come back into the sector. Fertilizers are about a third of the price that they were. And the black Sigatoka oil has also been subsidized heavily. And it's sending a lot of confidence to the farmers. We're seeing the production numbers. We're seeing numbers are up.
Are we
And
consuming?
farmers-
Are we consuming what we're growing here? I mean, you're here in the capacity of tourism. My question is: we're seeing those increases in production, but is it being consumed in the hotel sector, in the tourism sector? Because I know that a lot of one of the perennial issues for a lot of St. Lucians, a lot of farmers, a lot of concerned people is that the farmers are not able to meet the requirements of the hotels, especially the larger chains. Are we seeing an increased consumption in that area?
Absolutely. There has been a big push. There's tremendous strides in the hotel sector. In fact, in my former life, the company I worked for, Sandoz, hired an agricultural officer who came in, and his job was specifically to expand the farmers' network and to increase the level of purchase that came from local agricultural produce. And that was very, very, very successful. I think he spent about 5 years doing that, and that program yielded significant benefits. The local hotel association, the St. Lucia Hotel Association, SLHTA, they have an agricultural clearinghouse and a farmers linkage program. They have hired someone on their staff to do exactly that. So it's very good to see the hotel, the private sector, taking the lead in many aspects to ensure that they increase the level of purchase that they that would derive from local farms. Contrary to what is believed, hotels do prefer local products, because when you're able to put on the menu that these are carrots or lettuce that was grown in Labrie, or fresh tomatoes from the hills of Babonneau, it does make a nice story, and it does feel very authentic and local, and it adds to the visitor experience.
Speaking of which, are we producing enough of what the hotels need?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're very, very far from perhaps about less than 10% of what
Wow.
the hotels would need from fresh produce.
Is there a program in place where we can assist farmers to, because one of the things, I'm in marketing, and the whole thrust of that is to match your need or a grouping's needs with the supply, right? So I have a need, and I have suppliers, and the job is to get those two to a marketplace, a place where the need is satisfied. Do we have a program where the farmers now, rather than everybody producing the exact same thing, that they're actually producing to meet demand and not just producing because this is what they know and they feel that, okay, so I'm going to produce cucumbers, but really and truly what they really need is zucchini, so to speak. Is there any kind of a program between your ministry and maybe agriculture that could mend or bridge that gap?
But I think one of the realities of agriculture production in our country is our history in producing bananas, and I think that agriculture diversification has not been as quickly as perhaps we would have liked as a country. But while we have made significant strides, I think that we can go some ways. The agriculture department, I know, have a very, very strong and passionate minister leading it. And I don't know all the science and all the deep issues pertaining to agriculture, but what I can tell you is that he does have a passion to diversify and to create those linkages.
So let's go back to visitor arrivals, right? We said
Sure.
you talked about.
But the linkage goes beyond visitor arrivals.
Well, exactly,
So
and
we were
and
talking about the
right. So this
accommodation
is where,
sector.
this is where
We-
I want to go
mean,
back to.
vendors come into play, taxi drivers, restaurants, local entertainment spots, sites and attractions, a host of other businesses come into play, so that tourism does have this very, very big spin-off, and the economic impact is tremendous.
Is our tourism product strongly branded enough? Is it an authentic brand? I mean, when, for instance, you go to the city and you look and you're thinking, oh, I think as a citizen, this is our city. I'm almost embarrassed that people would come into our city. I don't go to the market, for instance. I don't go to the market. I don't feel comfortable in the market. And I'm just thinking, if as a St. Lucian, I don't feel comfortable in that space, how do visitors, now I'm not a visitor, I'm not a tourist, so they would be seeing it from a different perspective. But is there any plans to give the city a facelift, the vendors arcade, the waterfront area? What's going on?
Yeah, well, a couple weeks ago, we launched the OECS Tourism Competitive Project. It's a $15 million project, and it has 3 islands are involved. So we have Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent. Our component is about 15 million, like I've said, and one of the major components of the St. Lucia project is to change the facade of downtown Castries, principally the Castries market. So there's going to be a whole reconfiguration. There's going to be a whole look and feel. There's going to be training of our vendors in terms of product development and product placement and sales techniques and customer service and merchandising and all of those issues, with one single goal in mind, and that is to improve on the visitor experience and increase revenue spend. And so the vendors now can become more effective business people. I think for too long we have blamed them and we've expected them to do it on their own. But what I love is we have the opportunity now to come in and to work with local vendors and to develop them and to show them opportunities.
Are we engaging the vendors, though, in all of this?
But we're about to now. We're about to now.
Okay.
But I think historically that we haven't enough, and that has been one of the gaps in the tourism development of our country.
Because I think it could be misconstrued as high-handed to say, oh, it sounds wonderful. I understand where you're coming from because I'm in the business, so I understand what it is to want to improve the service that is being offered and all of that. But maybe in the minds of the vendors,
whatever we're doing was actually research-led. So this came out of the World Bank benchmarking study. It was done in 2013, and it was a stakeholder-led approach to the creation of this report,
right.
which made recommendations for a series of things to be done. And that is how we market the destination, which is one component of this project. That is the look and feel of the market. That is getting feedback from vendors who are not doing as well as they would like in terms of their revenue performance from cruise ship passengers. Hence the need for product development initiatives to be led. And as well, taxi drivers and a whole host of other stakeholders. So it was a very comprehensive approach and very consultative. So it is informed by a research-led initiative.
Okay, great. I like this because I have a problem with people just swooping in and saying, I'm your savior, I'm going to save you from yourself, and you're going to do ABC because I tell you to, and you're going to
No, this is
yield
not what that is.
XYZ.
This is
Because
not
you know
what that is.
solutions don't roll like that.
yeah.
We're going to buck against the grain just because you say, without asking or informing or collaboratively getting me to be a part of it. So we're going to be doing this whole
We've started already.
Reno-
The designs for the market is at a very advanced stage, and the Department of Tourism is working with the Ministry of Economic Development, and I think that we've already advertised for a number of positions. We've began strengthening the project unit. I think the PR expert is already in, and we've got a project manager, and so on. So the project has already started.
what is going to happen to the vendors when we're doing all of this?
Well, I don't have those construction details as yet. I think that it starts sometime in
But
the
they will
second-
not be displaced to
No,
the
no.
point where
No, no.
they
This
can't
is
earn a
to-
living.
This is to improve their facility. This is to improve their living, and this is to give them a better opportunity.
But while you're
And
improving,
this
they
is to-
still have to leave.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't have those construction
Right.
details yet, but I know that the project should start sometime in the second half of the year.
So I'm hoping that you guys will waltz in again and give us all of the details and
I'll be happy to
allow.
come back once
Absolutely.
we would have had the project brief.
The door is always open, as I always say. The door is always open to come through and,
Sure.
and to discuss that with us. Now we're going to be working on the vendors arcade and the vendors market, but then we're going to have across the street this eyesore,
Which one is that?
the CDC buildings. Is anything being done about that while we're working on all of those projects?
There is a broader long-term plan, of course, yes, to redevelop the entire Castries area. You would have seen elements of that plan being announced and hotly debated in the media of late when we talk about the Banans Bay and so on. So it's to look at the Castries Harbour and to ensure that we maximize the true potential of the harbour, which is a significant piece of I wouldn't say real estate, but sea and a body of water. Where it's a natural deep harbor, close to one of the largest economic space in the world, in an archipelago where you have the hottest cruising spot in the world. I mean, what else can you ask for? It is just tremendous, and it's there with a lot of opportunity for us to grow the city, for us to ensure that the city be a more authentic city, a more effective city, and a city that can maximize its economic opportunities. So you're seeing elements of that plan being established already.
Going back to the Banans Bay area, a lot has been said about the government's high-handedness in coming in and making plans for the people of Banan and not involving them.
By who?
The usual suspects.
That's politics.
The
That's
usual
politics.
suspect. But it's important. It's important for the people to understand, because once anything goes out there, you know what the St. Lucian psyche is like. It's out there. There's
no
never smoke
high-handedness.
without
Listen,
fire.
We have been so transparent in everything we've tried to do. I think that we perhaps are too transparent. And, we every step of the way, we sign MOUs, we let people know. So you talk about DSH before, there was a block being laid, or before equipment went onto the track. What was the first thing we did? We signed the MOU, and we made everything public to the people of St. Lucia. I mean, this project was being negotiated for quite some time by the previous administration.
You're talking about the DSH.
Correct. Yeah. We signed off our seafloor to someone else, and it was in the dark. Someone found out about it quite by accident. We appointed an ambassador to the International Maritime Organization, and we found out about it as a country in the British press. So we have been so transparent. I mean, it's good. The debate is good, but what I will say is that let us be constructive. It is unfair to criticize something without doing your own research and sticking to the facts of the case and the matters. But when, I think what's unfortunate in our politics is when people tell tales and people mislead, the public that is looking up to them for information. That is a cancer in our politics.
It is a cancer, but it does not negate the fact that the damage has been done, the seed has been planted, and it is germinating, and people are asking, okay, so what's going to happen with the Bananas Bay? And are the people going to be displaced? Is there any plan by government in
Well,
the
well,
sh- in the in the interim,
I'm telling you that
in the short
government-
term?
I can tell you that the government that I'm part of would ensure this, that anytime we go into an area to develop it, there'll be consultation, one. Two, we will ensure that the people who are there and who would be displaced, if any at all, these individuals will be better off than they were before. People will be involved and at the center of every single policy, every single initiative that we do. That's what we've been all about. Look at it.
How soon can we expect to see any engagement by the government with the people with regard to the development of the harbor?
Yeah. Well, I'm not taking the lead on that.
Okay.
My job, I market and investors and so on. But I'm not the minister taking the lead, so I would be happy to have the lead minister to
Absolutely.
speak with you on that.
Absolutely. I would love that, because I would like to know. I mean, it's not just for the people of Banan, it's for the entire St. Lucian population.
But it's just
I
one
mean,
aspect to
absolutely. One of the things that
overhaul development of the Castries Harbor.
One of the
so
things-
that we can maximize more economic opportunity from the potential of the harbor.
One of the things I think I liked, especially, I like the mayor. I don't necessarily always agree with everything he says, but I think his heart is in the right place, and I think he's fearless in
doing a
that
good
area.
job.
He's doing a
Doing a tremendous
good
job.
job. He's doing a good job. But I think he's moving a little too slow on cleaning up the Bananas area of those tractor trailers, because I'm telling you, I'm a person who travels, I drive at all hours. And it would be amazing to see all of those tractor trailers being parked in that area at night. And they have no reflective lights on them. There's nothing on them. And sometimes you're driving in the pitch dark and all of a sudden you see this thing looming almost like it's in the road. Because you know how it is with darkness, I would really like to see a complete clearing of that area. If nothing else, just a complete clearing of that area.
We're in agreement.
And for it to stay that way, because there has been a clearing, but it has come back worse. It's like a weed, it grows. You clear it and then it grows back thicker and fuller. So I would really like to see that. I'd like to see that moved on pretty quickly. But I would really appreciate if you take if the minister who's taking the lead on that project would come through and have a chat with us on that. We're due for a break, but when we come back, you'll talk to us a little bit more about your tourism plans for St. Lucia, and we'll take some calls from our viewers. Stay tuned. See you on the other side of the break. Welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned to what's happening now with Laura and my guest, Minister Dominic Fede, Minister for Tourism in the Prime Minister's office. And we've been talking about a lot of things. We've been talking about the tourism product. We've been talking about how great a year it was for us, for the country last year as it relates to tourism, how we can parlay that bumper stay over crowd into economic sense, CENTS, so that our people, the citizens of St. Lucia, can benefit, not just say, okay, we've had X amount of people come through, but how much money are they spending? Are we doing enough for our tourism product? Is our tourism product authentic enough? Is it branded properly? So we've been talking a little bit about that. What else can we look forward to this year with regards to our tourism product? Who can improve our tourism product?
We do have a lot of new investments in the pipeline. So, for example, the Ritz-Carlton project in Viewfort, that's at a very advanced stage and should start construction. We have the GP product, the Fairmont Hotel in Choiseul, a 250-room facility, 5-star all-inclusive, and that should bode well. And I'm very glad for the village of Choiseul that they will be participating in such a tremendous way in the tourism industry. And I know that Sandoz has announced that they will be building Hotel Number 4 on the Pigeon Island Causeway. What this means are St. Lucians will get a number of opportunities to get jobs, to have small businesses, to be part of that industry in so many ways.
We have our first call, but after we've taken that call, I want to ask you a question
Sure.
about the prudence of having so many Sandals properties on island. Good evening. Thank you for calling. You're on the air. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Hello,
The
hi.
minister says that last year, 2017, was a great year. But for who? For some. Not for professionals. For some.
Explain this.
Now, for some. Now, Cass Streets. I get to Cass Streets and I get so nervous, I just want to run back to my home. There is so much that has to be done. So I don't know what's the great thing about the mayor doing so much because I can't see it. That's number 2. Number 3, the traffic. When the cruise ships are on board, the kind of traffic. We need an alternative route from Grosley to Dennery to Vieux-Fort. We need to work on an alternative route going this way because when my husband came from university, that was the first thing he put down to the politicians. But they don't listen. Okay? We need an alternative route. You leave your home and you get out to try to get into Castries. You leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. You leave at 7:30. You leave at 8. I didn't realize it was so bad until last week when I had to get down to town for 9 o'clock because there was a certain appointment that I had. Okay? And let me tell you, girl, when I got there, I was so angry and nervous. How could anybody drive in the traffic like that every day, morning and afternoon, to get to work or to get to any destination that they are going to? This is terrible. And that is why I figure when the civil servants, when other people get to work, they are so upset. And when customers come in and want to get some service, everybody's so annoyed. We need to put it down on the table and get an alternative route from Castries to Dennery, from Dennery to Vieux-Fort. We need that alternative route like tomorrow because that is terrible. And you see, the thing about a lot of our people, they say nothing. They say nothing, okay? But then it's better you tell the politicians what you want rather than when the time comes to vote for them, you want to vote them out because you never ask them for what you want. You need to ask them and help their vision, help them think, and tell them what it is that's really killing the country and killing we St. Lucian people because we need things to ease up our nerves, ease up our blood pressure. You know, let us see what's happening. It's not only about saying we put in this big, this and that and that and that. No, the little things that would enhance our lives in St. Lucia. And if they would listen to some of us like me, I don't think they would be bombarded as they're being bombarded now. But they have to listen because it's we that have to help them. And don't just go out to an election and vote them out because we never help them. But I'm asking for an alternative route from Castries to Dennery, from Dennery to Vieux-Fort, and stop this 3 bottleneck we have, getting down to Castries. And your whole nerves and your blood pressure go up, because that's what happened to me last week Wednesday. And now I can put myself in the shoes of other people that leave their homes to go to work, and they are so angry when you come to them. Now the other thing is, we can put condominiums, apartments, this and that. Reform planning before we do that. Reform planning, there's so much red tape, there's so much pushing you around, there's so much everything. They're trying to put a one-stop shopping. A one-stop shop is the greatest thing in planning, okay? They need to do that. Laura, look at, for instance, the Baywalk Mall. Where are they thinking, St. Lucian people that's supposed to think that are in these organizations, okay? You never put an alternative route to get to Baywalk Mall, where we should have one road coming from Grosley, and everybody who's going to Baywalk, who's going to town, bottleneck there, because there's not an alternative route to turn into Baywalk, and then whoever going to Castries, just drive down and go to Castries. Where is planning? Where is the DCA? Where is Lands and Survey? Where is planning to think? How are you developing a country when investors come in here and they want to put in all the different documents of this, that, and the other for you to go and start doing the condominiums and the apartments? And it takes you forever to get that done. It takes you forever to get that done. Okay? So where are we going with this thing? They need to listen to some people. That's what the politicians don't do. They don't listen. And then they turn around and say, you're a big mouth and you're a troublemaker and you always want your way. No. I want to see St. Lucia simply beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling and for sharing. I'm, for one, would the thing about the alternative route from north to south, I would really appreciate that. Some things that you said about the not so much for the professionals. I wanted her to expound on that, but she wasn't willing to. So unfortunately, we didn't get that. We have another call. Okay, so we lost that call. Yeah. So, and when she spoke about we have another call. Okay, so you need to turn off your television. Turn off your television. We have a serious feedback. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, your television is still on. I'm getting a serious feedback. You need to move away from the television. Yes,
Is
hello?
it better?
It's better now, thanks.
I would like to know when SRP is in power, how comes no dog barks? And every time UWP is in power, everybody has a problem. I would like them to answer. And the lady that just spoke, I want to know if she will finance the government one time to put a route from Castries to Vieux-Fort. Thank you.
Thanks for calling and thanks for sharing. And I mean, we have another call online.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
That is the problem with St. Lucia. We tend to be too politicized. What the lady said before was an excellent point, and it is something that both administrations have admitted to. It is something that Sir John Compton, before he died, planned to have an alternative route into the north. Okay? So that is nothing new. What the caller said makes a lot of sense. Now, currently we have an issue whereby, Mr. Fede, I will rope you in. I was recently looking at an online, I think they call it flight status, you know, where you try to find information on your flights and different things out of the different airports. And what it is that you can also leave comments. So they spoke about the airports in St. Lucia, and you can speak about or comment on the different airports that you travel through. And I believe what it is that we here in St. Lucia, yes, you found a lot of persons commenting on the airport, the size of the airport and how small it was and inefficient. I'm not hitting the airport because I'm guessing there is plans for the airport. But one particular person spoke about the roads leading to the airport, and that is a very bad thing for St. Lucia. Because tourists, a lot of them, yes, they are accustomed to bad roads in their country, but they are those who come from the metropolitan areas. They are those who come from first world countries, and they are not accustomed to these bad roads. So if we are selling ourselves as an expensive destination, as a destination that is first class, our roads need to be first class. We need to stop thinking of it as an infrastructure issue, as something that we St. Lucians have to deal with. We are inviting tourists into our country. We are inviting foreigners into our country, which judge every single aspect of our country. When they come in, they look at the houses, they look at the infrastructure. There was one person who I was listening to some comedy, and the person spoke about St. Lucia and about how, she thought of St. Lucia, and that sounds like a wonderful place. And when she came down here, she looked at the place and she saw she was in a third world country, and she felt as if she was supposed to, build a dam or something for us because, it just looked like we're so needy. And that is not what we are supposed to perceive our country as. When people come here in St. Lucia, we're supposed to have at least good roads, good secondary roads. I mean, to the villages, it may take a little time. But our main roads from Uranora International Airport to Rodney Bay, because that's where all the hotels are, at least that infrastructure should be good. The Badlin is in a mess. You are going down there, you have vehicles having to go on the other side of the road. That can be an accident. I've seen big vehicles like big trucks having to skip one side of the road at the top of the Badlin, you understand, to go on the other side so that they can have a little smooth area. I mean, the government needs to do something about that. Right there in Dennery on the Lakai Fordor stretch there, you have, they dig up the road, they put some cones there, and they just leave it like that. I mean, when people come to our country, Mr. Fede, they look at all of these things, and that is sad. We look like a third world country. We look worse than a third world country in these people's eyes. And if we're supposed to be expensive, if we're supposed to be putting tax on our airport and all these different charges, the people expect when they come here that, we live up to some certain standards. Our main roads cannot be in such a mess. And we need to stop looking at it as an infrastructure project. Okay?
Thank you so much we have a number of calls waiting, so thank you so much for calling and for sharing your views with us. And I think the call is, I traverse this road quite frequently, especially the Bardo Little, and I can tell you it is horrendous. And all along the road we have those heavy pieces of equipment, just parked there, and at night it could be hazardous. We have another call online. Unfortunately, we're not giving you an opportunity to address any of those.
No, that's quite okay.
But at least you're hearing, and then you
Yes.
can go back to your office and your cabinet and share with them what the concerns are. Yes, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you're on the air.
Sorry.
Hello? Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask the Minister of Tourism,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that I'm trying to bring in a boat for my own personal use and I have to apply to the Ministry of Tourism for duty-free concessions?
What say you about that?
That is for your personal use? Okay, we have a cabinet conclusion which governs the entire marine sector, but usually it is for watercraft vessels for tourism use. I'm not sure that it pertains to vessels for your own personal use. I don't think that vessels for your own personal use would qualify for incentives because it is for pleasure and not for the tourism sector.
And that has been your
I am
experience?
not sure. Don't quote me on it, but I don't.
The thing is that there is an application that has to be filled out. And the application asks you whether it's for private use or whether it's for commercial use. And you have to submit that application so that you can get the duty-free concession.
Right.
But I'm still
As
trying to
far
figure
as I know, I am not aware that there are any concessions on
there are concessions
vessels.
for watercraft. Anybody bringing in a watercraft?
I'm not aware. Sorry.
So, but you're quite willing and able to pay your duties on your boat.
Yeah, well, back in before the minister was there, we were attempting, because I'm part of the Marine Trade Institute, we were attempting to encourage people in St. Lucia to go into boating because it's a very lucrative thing for both for SLASPA and for everybody else. And because we were trying to do that, we're going all the way back to John Compton, and we managed to get concessions passed so that people could own their own boats, because a boat is not a cheap thing. And when you're talking about you're paying 20% duty on a boat will cost you $100,000 US. You're talking about $20,000 US. So that there was a point in time when you only paid 6% service charge on a boat. Now, this thing has, over the years, the thing has just eroded, and now we are paying 42% duty on a boat. So so this is where we need we need relief for that, so that if we're not paying the 42%, we're paying 19.25%, which is the service charge of the VAT. But I think the minister has to address that at his ministry. And it takes about 2 to 3 weeks before you can even get your document signed for duty-free concession.
Okay.
These are problems.
So let me see if I understand you correctly. You want to bring in a boat for personal use and not for use for commercial use. And if you can bring it in for personal use, you're asking whether there are duty-free concessions for that, or you saying that there are. That has been your experience.
Well, you see, there's an application that you do to the Ministry of Tourism, and you say, and the application speaks to personal use and commercial use. Now,
I'm not aware, caller, that they
no, I'm an expert in the matter.
that it allows.
I'm an
for,
expert in the matter,
Yeah.
so I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I know that for commercial use, because we're looking to advance the tourism product and as well as create jobs and to grow the economy via tourism. So we encourage local entrepreneurship for persons to get into the watercraft sector. But I am not sure about personal use. I've never had to deal with a matter like that.
So well, that's one for you,
Yeah.
Mr. Minister.
I've never had to
that you're
deal
going to
with
have to when you get back to
I'll
your
do
office.
some more
to-
research,
yeah.
yes.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much
you-
for sharing.
I think the minister will need to look into this.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Closer, because I've cleared. I'm a customs broker, and I've done about 90% of the boats that come to St. Lucia come through me. And over the years, it has become increasingly more difficult to clear boats.
Okay.
And since over the last year, it has become almost intolerable. The amount of back and forth it has to go to this department and come back to that department and go back to the same department. And I would like the minister to look into this and simplify the process.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Well, quite a lot has been said.
Yes.
You get quite a lot of calls. But maybe I should try to address some of them. You know, I think we started out by saying that
Let's just take this last call.
Sure.
This last call, and then we'll revert to you. Yes, this is our final call. Hello.
Good evening.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Good evening.
I've got a concern. With all this tourism, which is very good for us, I remember not too long ago we had an incident in Chief-Fort where there was this problem with an aircraft that was coming in, and I think it had some difficulty landing and whatever. Is the government really taking health serious? Because something could happen in this country, whether it have to do with a ship in the harbor, whether it have to do with an aircraft that has difficulty. If we have I'm not asking for that, but I'm saying if something was to happen, what is it the government have in place to deal with the injured people health-wise? That is one. We're talking about the tourism, yes, but we need to take care of our people before we take care of foreigners. Too many incidents are taking place at hotels where the locals don't have a say. Whenever the foreigner speaks, we listen to the foreigners and not the locals. The local is always wrong. They can spit on us, they can slap us, they can kick us, and not much is going to happen for that. We need the dollar, yes. We need the US dollar, yes.
But
we need
so
to
let me ask a question though there. Is it a government thing, or is it us the people? We have rights in our country and we have recourses. So if you're working at a place, if you were working at a hotel and I'm as a local person, I were to come in there and I was not happy with your service to me and I spat on you, what would you do?
Take it up.
Sorry?
I'm taking it up to the authorities.
Exactly, but what
Good.
do
But
we
what
do? Hold
happens
on,
when
sir.
you take it
But
up,
what
what's
do we?
happening?
But I'm talking about as a local, as a local, you would take it up to the authorities. But what do we do when it is a foreigner, especially a Caucasian person, who spits on us? What do we do as a person, as an individual, for our rights that has been impinged upon? You see, a lot of the times, and I worked in the hotel industry, and I've experienced that for myself, and I have witnessed that for myself. A lot of the times, if it's a local who has done something, we will go to the ends of the world and back to ensure that that person suffers and be made to pay a penalty. But when it comes to a visitor, it's almost as if they're demigods, and if I do anything,
I agree with you. I agree.
Us, the people.
I want the government, now when I'm saying that, I'm not talking about one party, I'm talking about any government that
No, but I'm saying it shouldn't be a government thing regardless of the administration. It should be the people. If you will not accept it from one person doing it to you, why would you accept it from another person doing it to you? Because the person is of a different racial background.
Let me just say this, because I have worked in tourism for about 16 years, and I have not experienced anyone spitting on anyone, or I've not experienced a guest that is being physical.
You lived in a cocoon.
Absolutely not.
Because I experienced it.
I was
I've
part
seen
of
it happen.
3 hotels
but
in
it
St.
has
Lucia,
been on the news.
and there were thousands and thousands of people.
Maybe it doesn't happen at
No,
Sandals.
never.
But it's happened at other resorts.
Yeah,
It
because
has
it has
happened
been
as
on the
a-
news.
in
St. Lucians have been lamenting, calling programs. But the other thing too, Laura, I really want us to really see where we're heading. There is nothing wrong. I would support any government that could put infrastructure, tourism, whatever to make. But we need to start with our people. It's like we just almost forgetting our people. It's true we're saying they will benefit in the long run. We keep saying that all the time, yes. But you need, because our people have to be happy. So when these foreigners come here, so we can take good care of them in good faith and good spirit, because we are also well taken care of.
Absolutely.
But
Thank
you
you.
see, one of the connections, Caller, that we fail to make is the contribution that tourism makes towards taking care of our people. So if you would calculate, for example, every dollar that is spent in education, what percentage of that comes from tourism or is generated as a result of tourism? If you would take, for example, every time we go and we experience the health services in the health centers and in the hospital, what percentage of that comes from tourism? If you would take, for example, every time we drive our car on the roads, what percentage of that comes from tourism? It would be quite an interesting conversation for us to have. So I think that at every step of the way, I think that both governments have done their best to ensure that we bring our people every step of the way to get them involved in the tourism sector. We've been talking today about village tourism, and one of the things we have said is that all of this growth that is taking place, we couldn't just grow a big empty balloon, but one of the things that we had to do was to ensure that we empower our people to be entrepreneurs, to participate in the main sector, and to ensure that they are small business people, they're opening new sites and attractions, that they are boat owners, that they are owners of cafes, that they become bread and breakfast owners, or become owners of main chains within the Caribbean. But unless we imbue that spirit of entrepreneurship, unless we empower them, and I think that this is where the conversation needs to be, is how do we get our people involved? And it is only when we do so, then we will see them becoming the best that they can be in the various sectors. So I'm very, very inspired by some of the things that my government will be doing to ensure that the St. Lucian people benefit from the tourism industry in ways that they have never done before. We've been here for a year and a half, and we've already signed an agreement to that end. The policy position is to ensure that we make capital a lot more accessible to small business people who can then grow into big business people.
Absolutely.
But we must imbue that spirit of entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for calling and for sharing. You are our last caller for this evening, and we appreciate your comments greatly.
Thank you.
So before we're running quickly out of time, which is why I let this be the last.
Time flies
caller.
when you're with Laura. Time flies.
There you go. So quickly run through a few of the things that you expect, and then I want to share with you an experience that one of my viewers had, and I would like to get your opinion or your views on that.
Sure. Well, we've been talking about the road network and so on. I want to say that my government has that as a priority. But we started out on this show talking about the limitations within the fiscal situation of our country. And we spoke about those cents and how much of the cents went to salaries and what percentage of every dollar went to debt servicing. And we came up with a frightening number, somewhere over 70% between those two. And, you know, that right there is the crux of the matter. How do you pay for all of this stuff? And so we have all of these needs. Our infrastructure is in need of advancement. Our health facilities are in need of shoring up. Our schools are in need of advancement and improvement.
Speaking of schools, I
we
hope,
have,
I hope there's a plan for education towards...
We just have we have so little money to do it. And where will the money come from? And so therefore, one of the things that we have sat down at the cabinet and realized that as we look to grow St. Lucia and as we look to improve St. Lucia, as we look to fix the judicial system, we have to ensure that we grow the economy. We have to ensure that we end unemployment, that we get people to work, that we end this, that we make people less reliant on welfare programs, that we empower them, that we train them for jobs that the market is creating, that there is a good synergy between the education system and the new jobs that are being created, that we give St. Lucia the very best chance of succeeding, that we do something about youth unemployment, which is still stubbornly high, that we bring the unemployment number even below the 16.8% that it has fallen to in the last few months.
That's the latest statistic?
Correct.
16%?
16.8.
16.8%?
Yes, in the third quarter, yes. The stats department measured it at that, yeah.
Okay. And would you happen to know the statistic of unemployment amongst the youth?
The unemployment among the youth is in the high 30s. So it had come down before below 40, but I think it's somewhere about 37% now.
Okay. Because one of every two before was unemployed.
Yeah, and that's what we inherited.
So
it's very, very close. And in a year and a half, we've been able to make these significant improvements in the job numbers of our country. And tourism has been leading that. Agriculture has recovered significantly and has been leading that as well.
So I'm going to have to extend an invitation to the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Infrastructure, to come through. And the invitation is still extended to the Minister for Internal Affairs to come through and have a chat, because you've now put the spotlight on them, you know. So Blade Dominic coming after you.
They have been doing very well.
Right. Now, Dominic, I want to, before we close off, there's a couple more things that I want to deal with. So the first one is, I have a viewer, and I trust them, and they sent me a bit of information. And one of the things that they're saying is that they took a couple of guests from other properties across to the beach along the Sugar Beach, yeah, and they were stopped. And they were told that they couldn't access the beach. In order for them to access the beach, they had to pay $50 per person. And that would include a shuttle and food and drinks at the bar to the tune of. And if they exceeded the $50 per person, then they would be expected to pay more when they got there. They really weren't interested in the food and drinks at the Sugar Beach. They just wanted to relax at the beach. Last I checked, all of our beaches were public beaches, and there should be no barring of anybody, regardless of what establishment is set up along the waterfront. What is your opinion or thoughts on that? Have you heard of anything like that? Because it was really aggravating to the guests, because they were almost like they were harassed. And even when they got to the beach, they were told that they can't stay there, they can't use the bench, the chairs, the lounge chairs there. They couldn't put the towels there. They had to move along, and it was almost like a harassment by the hotel staff of the people who just wanted to use the beach, which is public access. Should be publicly accessible. What would you say about that?
I'm not quite sure about the facts of this matter, but I just want to say that it is quite usual in all-inclusive hotels that you may buy what is called a day pass. I'm sure you've been in them. And sometimes that may include the pool facilities, the beach facilities. I don't know if somehow there was a miscommunication between what was said and what was meant, but I would find it rather unusual if any hotel would actually try to charge someone for coming to the beach, much less barring them from coming to the beach. I think it is widely accepted. There is a need for a very serious conversation about the use of our beaches in St. Lucia, and that is to ensure that both tourists and locals coexist and have respect for each other's perspective. If you're on a holiday or vacationing, you don't want for example, to be harassed and so on. Likewise, if you are a local, you don't want to be looked upon in a suspicious manner or for people to treat you unfairly. And this happens very often between what security officers do and what hotel policies
but it
do
seemed
ascribe to.
In this case, it seemed to be a new policy because they interfaced with different personnel, and they were all given the same thing. So I mean, I understand your point.
But I was going to make the point, Laura, that there is a disconnect between because a lot of security personnel are hired from external companies,
right?
And they are not always in tune with the policies of the hotel, and so they while they may be responsible for the broader issue of security, they oftentimes misrepresent what the hotel is trying to portray. But I hear you, they are contracted by the hotel, even though it is outsourced. And that sometimes sends the wrong message to people who are usually the victims of these very bad situations.
But I will update you further on that, because it was very disturbing to me. And usually when you hear about these things, you hear it's locals who are given that pushback, but they were visitors to the country. And so that was a little disturbing for me. But thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. It was kind of almost impromptu. I quite like that. So there was no scripted, there was no talking points, there were nothing of the sort, and I really like that, and I appreciate you coming through, and I hope your other cabinet colleagues take a page from your book and
we have a press
knock on the front door.
We have a press briefing every Monday.
Yeah, that's for the mainstream media people. I can't come to your press briefings.
We are very open to the press, and we love talking to the press. We love sharing what we're doing as a government with the people of St. Lucia.
But I really appreciated you being here and sharing with not just the press, because it's a story. When you're talking to the press, you're looking for the next big story. But to interface.
This is a conversation.
Absolutely.
With Laura.
Absolutely. And the viewers,
Yes.
So they get a feel for the minister and to get to call in and ask their own questions and to air their own views. So I really appreciate that, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you.
And this is where we end this episode of What's Happening Now with Laura. However, I want to go back to what we talked about in the beginning, where we showed you the video of the young man who was just being a complete moron to think that you could look for this euphoric high by smoking embalming fluid laced ganja or whatever it is he was smoking. Ridiculous. I have another footage, and we've run out of time, and I'm hoping that we will be given a few more minutes, although we have another program after that. But if we're not able to air it, I promise you I will be airing it next week, where you could see another young St. Lucian, Dr. Dunbar Alcindor, at work. And for those of you who watch me all the time, you would remember that Dr. Dunbar came in last year, I believe it was, and was talking about what he does. He's a neurosurgeon in Florida, and this is a prime opportunity to get a feel, to get as close as you possibly can to what he does and the lives that he saves. And I hope one day Dr. Alcindor actually comes back to St. Lucia and can provide his services to us here, because we have some serious head injuries, fatal head injuries, because we don't have the personnel on hand at our hospitals to take care of those head injuries. So congratulations to Dr. Dunbar for doing a fantastic job, and I'm hoping that we can air the clipping this evening. If not, I promise we will do it first thing next week when we come back, because we've run all out, and I can hear the producer saying to me we've run completely out of time and we're on borrowed time right now. So next week, that will be the clipping that I will be leading with. So thank you so much for tuning in and for staying with us throughout this program, and we will see you next week.